So I completely fell into it. I was working as a primary school teacher. My son was 3 months old, and I was a single mum at the time. And my dad came home one day and said, "Look, I've met this woman. She needs, help with her business and an administrator, and it has something to do with training. Can you just go and have a chat with her? Because I think that you two will get along." And so I went and met, and the woman was Terry Martignego, and she had a childcare RTO at the time. And we had about 50 students when I came on board. And she was the first RTO owner that I learnt from. And within about 18 months, 2 years, we had childcare on scope. We had education support before it was education support. We were teaching TAE, and she'd kind of built this business into about 500 students, and we had government funding, and so I got to, we went through audits together, and I learned just a huge amount in the job. I think it would have been about 3 months in that I was sitting down with this group of single moms who were hoping to get into childcare because it was something that they could work around, being a mum and needing income, and they were kind of getting to the end of the qualification, and this woman came up to me, and she'd come from a really abusive relationship, and I'd come from a bit of a rough relationship, and she cried, and she gave me this hug, and she said, "I never thought that I would be anything." She said, "And you've taught me over the last thing that I can do this, and I can take care of my kids, and I can, that I'm worthy, and I can do this." And I just broke down to tears. And we had a lot of women that went through the program that had very similar thoughts. They came into vet going, "I've got to do something because I have to take care of my kids," but not really thinking that they had any value or potential. And through the training and getting into a job and being able to, take care of themselves and achieve something, they found this incredible self-worth. And I remember turning around at one point just going, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to make a difference, and I've never looked back. So a couple of years ago, I was working with Raylene Bartlett of RTO Doctor, who I'm still very good friends with, and we were working with RTOs and doing rectification projects and fixing things and teaching people, and we kept on coming across trainers who, they would call up and they would go, "Look, I've got this question, I don't know what to do," and they just needed guidance to make the right decisions. And so I said, "Okay, look, I'm gonna start mentoring trainers," and then I was like, I need to get resources out to more people. So I went and got this website, and I was like, what do I want them to do? I want them to understand, I want them to understand vet, so I was like, okay, I want them to understand the TAE. So I just kind of threw it all together, and it operated for the first 2 years as a completely non-for-profit website where trainers could email me with their problems, and I could just, I would provide advice, and I would give resources as much as I could and things like that. And then a couple of years ago, I was working at Ashley Services Group, and I was coming out of my role there, and one of the colleagues that I was working with, Wayne Spackman, who is equally dedicated to, just wanting to help trainers develop. I sat down with him and I said, I think I want to turn this into, an actual business. I said, and I've got this idea, and I think if we figure out where trainers are and how we need to build them and develop them like we do with our students, I said, I think we can make a difference. Look, I think, so the qualifications are incredibly important. The skills even more so. And I think RTOs work really hard, but they have to produce this training to masses, you know, and that's literally the only way to remain viable. We didn't want to do that. We work with Mr. Wed because we do go into organizations and we do kind of these big continuous improvement programs, and part of that has been upskilling to the new TAE. But more so, the purpose of understanding TAE is looking at developing cultures of commitment and developing trainers into lifelong learners. So right. Most trainers at some point when they made the decision to transition from their industry to being an industry trainer came to it from the perspective that they love what they do and they want to teach more people how to do it really, really well. But then there's this huge amount of paperwork, and now I've got to really relate to people, and I've got to learn how to plan, and I've got to learn how to organize classes, and I've got to learn how to deal with all the compliance that follows on from that. And these are things that don't necessarily naturally sit within their skill set. So I think Understand TAE, what we try to do is we try to work with organizations where we go, that's okay, it's okay if this is not your, you know, your passion might be training, or your passion might be, you know, taking the students through the assessments, but we're gonna help you build that part of it, but we're also gonna kind of help build you into a really well-rounded trainer as well, because then that's gonna make all of the stuff that you love to do that much easier, because you're not stressing out about all the stuff that maybe doesn't come naturally to you.
Right, yeah.
So my own mouth is probably a big hurdle for me. I say things before thinking them through sometimes. And I am very passionate, so you know, if I see someone who's not doing the right thing, I'm the first person to march in there and go, this is not okay. So my mouth has gotten me into trouble, and I've learned to not temper necessarily what I say, but how I say it. Right. That's been a big learning curve for me. There's been multiple occasions where I've taken on too much, and so learning to ask others for help has been a pretty hard learning curve, which I'm probably still working on. My husband will say that I'm not there yet.
Well, very few people are. Yeah. We're all still on that journey.
And I think at the moment the biggest challenge for me is to help vet practitioners feel hopeful again about the industry. I think our industry's taken a massive beating over the last three and 4 years in particular, and I think there's been a huge cloud that's come over us, and so it's the vast majority of people have started to become really jaded and you know, look at it as if it's not actually going to get better. So I think the biggest challenge for me at the moment is not giving into that fear, and actually working with organizations to understand that developing a culture of commitment as opposed to fear-mongering a culture of compliance is actually the way that we're going to lead vet back into the light. You know, that story as to why I got into vet and making a difference with that one person, every trainer, every RTO owner, you know, 99% of them can tell me a story that they got into vet because they had that moment where they could see that they could make a difference in people's lives. Yeah. And that's a really beautiful, vulnerable place to operate from, and I think we need to do that more. We need to, you know, not be so fearful of regulators. We need to accept that we work in a very, very tough environment, but we also need to celebrate the massive differences that we make to just millions of Australians' lives on an annual basis, and we need to celebrate that a lot more. And that to me is the biggest challenge that vet faces at the moment, and that's what I want to push.
That's fantastic. You know, it's been great catching up with you, Lauren. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and to share stories and to learn from you. You're so inspirational. Thanks again for your time, and best of luck with the rest of 2019.